It is the Anfield Wrap. Hi-oh, Wolverhampton. It's the Anfield Wrap in association with RedsBet. Partnering with them throughout this year. Really pleased to be on board with them as ever. I've got Ben Johnson, Mike Nevin and Adam Melia with me. It is not your mum's dream night out. It is the Anfield Wrap show today. And it is talking about Wolves versus Liverpool. Before we get stuck into the game itself, I want to have a chat about... There's some things that happen sometimes, Adam, when you're at a match and you're sort of in the... I was at the game last night and you're in the day of the match, so you're not seeing any of the pre-match build-up really. You're not even particularly on social media. You get in the game, you've got no signal. Post-match, certainly doing what I have to do. I'm writing a piece, doing a show. And then I wake up this morning and it seems as though there's been controversy. And I'm like stunned by controversy here because... Doesn't everyone agree with the lineup? I mean, is anyone surprised by the lineup? Is anyone not thinking that was always going to be the lineup?
It's funny actually. I know exactly what you mean, and I think I've had that at times. After it's always either it's obviously after a non-win that these controversies happen. But yeah, it reminds me a little bit of either a home game where you've just had a big day, or an away game where you're not really paying attention to the social media, and you're a bit like, oh, afterwards, because it does. I suppose that's the thing about how the life around the match has taken it on a life of its own aside from the match, hasn't it? Kind of the whole sideshow of it. Because I'm even a bit like that with decisions during the game sometimes. You know, when you get home and everyone's talking about a pen or something, and you're like, oh, I didn't even really.
Against City, the company tackle. It didn't look great in the ground.
Yeah,
but afterwards everyone was like nails on red.
Talking about that. Yeah,
it just looked to me like he's over-egged, and then you see it, and it's a little bit different. So it's fair.
But then that's with the replays, and so it's a different conversation. But I always kind of think, what did I think at the time? Because to be fair, that's all the referee can see. So and when you're in the ground at the time, you're like, even if whatever happens, you move on from it, and all the players have moved on from it. No one's thinking about that for ages and ages afterwards, are they? And it's the same thing with selections. You sort of got to put yourself in there in the players' shoes, really. And the newer changed team was coming, and I think it'd be after time of any of us to take issue with it, considering we were probably all on shows and picked broadly similar things to this last week. It was either going to be a completely changed team, or one or two senior pros who were going to play awfully.
Well, we'll come on to the senior pros playing awfully in a minute, because that is, if anything, the biggest concern. Ben, I'm just going to say it because it is a thing. I'm going to ask each of you, were you surprised by the lineup? The only thing that surprised me, and it didn't even register until, again, it was pointed out to me a couple of minutes later, though, was no Lallana, and then the manager explains Lallana's picked up a little bit of a problem. They didn't want to risk him. Apart from that, if anything, I was like, would like to have seen a way not to start Lovren. I was more on that sort of hook. I was thinking, after seeing Milner at City, I'm not sure about that.
Maybe Lovren and Lallana had a chat. Lallana was like, I'm not going to play at all. You play 1 minute.
Yeah, I was going to say, Lallana sorted that himself. Yeah, Lovren sorted that himself, didn't he?
He did. But were you surprised? As I say, I just was not surprised, and in no way, shape, or form do I have the energy to have any ire about the situation.
No, it's not one that you're gonna look at and think, oh, he got it wrong. Oh yeah, we got beat. That was always a possibility. You're going through a tough ground anyway. There's no guarantees you go full whack, you win in that game. We want to do the week, but that it's a tough place to go. And I think people are saying all this bollocks about disrespecting the cup. The cup disrespects its fucking self these days. So let's not get into that. But I think you 1 or 2 injuries away from having quite a strong side. I think if you ask them a question, what kind of lineup do you want to play? I think he plays a couple of lads who start every game. So Milner. I think if you haven't got 2 centre halves who've been injured, freakish injuries.
Then he's got Lovren and Matip centre half, but Lovren hasn't played the last 6 games.
Yeah, and Fabinho starts centre mid. So then one of your centre mids, Curtis Jones, doesn't start maybe. You're then looking at a midfield of Fabinho, Milner and Keita, which is strong, and then a forward line of Shaqiri, Sturridge and Origi, which is strong. And then you're looking, well, we might just drop in 1 or 2 kids rather than 4 or 5. And that's a big difference. And what the Lovren thing doesn't help anyone in that, it disrupts us anyway. Question marks now if he's going to be fit or not. We were talking before, it wouldn't surprise me if he was fine on Saturday. Genuinely wouldn't. We've seen him get stretched off at the Cop end on gas and air. and play on the Saturday. And that's not a fucking exaggeration. That happened. He went off on a stretcher with Castaner and played on the Saturday. God knows what was wrong with him there, mate. I never needed Castaner. And then, well, I've needed Castaner when I've played on the Saturday. But
I can't work out if he's dead hard or dead soft, and the answer might actually be both.
I've got a suspicion around Lovren in that he convinces himself he's it. So like this whole, I had a theory in the summer when he was out with a stomach problem, and he then Liverpool say, oh, Dejan's not going to play the first part of the season. You know, in my head I'm thinking, right, that's a managed decision by the club to don't rush back. You've been late at pre-season training. We need to train you anyway. In Lovren's head, it's I'm going to now do an interview in Croatia to show the Croatian public how much of a genius I am and how hard I am in that I've played with a ruptured fucking spleen for 3 weeks and got us to the final of the World Cup or whatever. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure there's much controversy around it. What else was he going to do?
The other thing, Mike, is the scale of the opportunity that's in front of us. We are 4 points clear, and we're 4 points clear when it looks as though 4 points clear. It's not 4 points clear in 2001 when, you know, the league's going to be won with circa 80, 84, 85 points. It's 4 points clear when, you know, it seems counterintuitive to say it, but the fewer points that are going to be dropped, the more 4 points actually means more. And you would think that would mean, well, there's more points up for grabs. Everyone's confident to get more points, but it actually says the margin for error now for us, for City, for Spurs is absolutely minute. And that's the scale of the opportunity for us. And 4 points clear is also whisper it, but I think it could be since 1990, since everyone's on the same number of games around this stage of the season and with this many points clear. And against that is the balance of an FA Cup, which I still expect one of the top six to win it, don't get me wrong, but it's not the trophy it was.
No, I mean, there's no one loves the FA Cup more than me. When I grew up in an era when, you know, it sort of meant everything. For at least 10 years, you know, you wanted to win the FA Cup more than the league. You got bored of the league. But it was just a different competition. It was truly magical. And all of that mystique has just steadily been eroded over the years. And I mean, I think just with Liverpool's priorities, and we don't really need to sort of restate what they are, I don't think Liverpool Football Club went into that game last night with a winning mentality. And that is not a criticism. I think that's just the reality of it. Liverpool have just got much bigger, higher priorities. You know, it was a tough Christmas programme. We talked about prior to Christmas that Klopp might rotate players, probably against Newcastle. We'd sort of earmarked that game as one where he might drop a few out. He didn't really. And I think the plan really was just to play everyone through, just pay lip service to last night's game. And I think you can see that in his reaction to Liverpool's equaliser as well. I mean, normally there's fists being pumped and he's going mad and he's running on pitches. And Origi's goal really was met with no more than a rueful smile, as if to say, Christ, there could be a replay on here. And what
did everyone see Benitez, by the way, when the Newcastle penalty goes in?
I didn't actually know.
Oh my God, Matt Ritchie is getting beasted in training in the next couple of weeks. His life's going to be a living hell.
And that's they've got sort of similar priorities in staying in the Premier League, and that's what it's all about these days. I mean, it is tragic. I mean, we were saying before, in terms of first choice 11s over the weekend, I mean, I suppose Wolves are probably about the strongest because they've got I think they made 5 changes, but nonetheless they've got pretty much a recognisable first team lineup from their normal squad. But I don't really see where else Klopp goes last night, even if he had the intent to win the tie. You know, who else was there available? It was just forced on him really. But as I say, I just think the intent around the club and the fan base as well, except for people who've just got the idea that he needs to win a trophy, and that's, you know, it's a moot point really around the fact that he's trying to win the 2 biggest ones, and that's the priority.
He is trying to win the 2 biggest ones. You could say as it piles the pressure on him and on the club a little bit. But there's a flip side, which is, well, the pressure's on. This is what the pressure is. The pressure's been on arguably since Leicester away. I think you can make, you know, the argument that after we're 12 points out of 12, the idea that Brighton's an absolutely enormous must-win game for Liverpool, well, that's what you'd have wanted back in September. It's what you wanted when you play Leicester and then you play Tottenham. Yeah. You want them to be must-win games, and that's, you know, that this is it. This is the pressure.
This is it, and it's today. It's a slightly bitter pill to swallow, but having said that, would you like to be in a 2-legged League Cup semi now? No.
Oh God, imagine that.
So we could be, couldn't we, if we hadn't taken the bitter pill of Chelsea knocking us out of the League Cup. what we all hope is that we react in a similar way to getting knocked out of that competition, and then when the semis of the FA Cup are going, maybe Tottenham are playing City, and we're saying, I'm glad we're not in that, because look, this is where we are.
Well, Tottenham,
we've got to make sure we do that, mind you, but
Tottenham, all we can do is look after ourselves, and at present, regardless of what's going on in the FA Cup, we just look now at our fixture list. We've got 5 days off, then we play. Then we've got a week off, then we play. Then we've got fucking ages off.
10 days off.
We can go on holiday. They can all have a few days off. They can all go on a training camp. You can boost morale. You can get the boys together. You can say, look, you're 15 games away from fucking greatness here. You really are. And you can plot away to the end of the season. Tottenham and City haven't got that opportunity to do that. City play, alright, they play 2 games against, I don't know who it is in the league. Whoever it is.
Burton.
But they've still got to play them, and they'll still play a full-ish strength side.
I couldn't believe Tottenham have got a game tonight against Chelsea. I was doing City Talk this morning and going through the papers, and it was the profile for that game, and I was like, that is astonishing. And I'm looking at the two teams. League Cup.
Play Chelsea twice.
They play Chelsea tonight.
In them games, it's not like you can say. It's not like Tottenham will turn up with half a side.
No.
They'll go there and they'll run their legs off themselves, and then they've got to play the weekend, and then they've got to play the weekends after.
They've also got that got to win a trophy thing around Pochettino as well, so it's not like they can take it semi-seriously, even if they wanted to.
I think it's unbelievable. Other thing as well, Mike, I just did a little look this morning, Premier League minutes on the pitch, and maybe you can have a conversation around the manager with this, but then the flip side of that is, well, we're the boys who are 4 points clear. But Premier League minutes on the pitch, I just did City, and us, Sterling 1,479, Mahrez 12.58, Aguero 12.58, Mahrez 9.42, Sane 11.68, he's us 705. All three of our front three are greater than Sterling, who's their biggest at 1,479. Salah 1,759, Firmino 1,611, Mane 1,577, Shaqiri's 819. Kane is the second most full stop in terms of forwards, to be fair to Tottenham. But I think that we've been saying for a while, there's a massive burden on Harry Kane, club and country level, which I think at times just maybe he struggles to shrug off, and actually puts his excellence at times in context that he's doing it through this battle. But that is a marked difference, isn't it? Yeah. That is a marked difference. That's 2 or 3 games of football from Salah to Sterling before you've even looked at Aguero, before you've even looked at Sané.
Yeah, they're all sort of 200 or 300 minutes shy of what our front three have played, and our front three have played pretty much every game, and you'd expect that to continue. Sort of 17 league games to go. There's still a marathon in front of us, and they've got to be fit and primed, and missing those weekends when City and Spurs potentially are playing later on in the competition, 6th round day, semi-final day. That'll do Liverpool massive favours. I think it was interesting. City have just got more options. They have got more quality players in those sort of potential front three positions. I think even on Sunday, they had Mahrez, Sterling and Jesus up front, which is, it's a belt of front three. When you compare it to what we were able to put out last night in Sturridge, who's, to me, is just looking increasingly lethargic, and Origi, who really has barely played. They've got the potential to still put out something relatively strong even in the FA Cup.
Is the one last little thing here, Mike, and it's interesting when you, every now and again, and I don't think it helped. For instance, I don't think it helps the games. The last one, it's Monday night and it's BBC One. I think, for instance, if it's BT and it's Saturday 5:30, then there's other things for everyone to talk about. I think that's part of the thing here. But I do sometimes wonder, there's all this stuff around, Liverpool are going to be unbearable if they win the league, you know what they're like, and all this sort of stuff. That's part of the national conversation. Well, the flip side is, that's because that's how much it means to us. Yeah. And I think that's something that's missed. I think it's something that gets missed outside of these 4 walls, if you know what I mean, as to how much, and at times it could even be counterproductive to this football club. But I think it's missed exactly how much genuinely the 19th title will mean. I just don't think the general national football mood has properly got that in. They see it instead of something that's banterish, something that's gloating. It's not. It's an albatross around the neck, on the back, of this football club at all times.
Yeah, I don't know whether that comes down to our eternal optimism over the last, sort of 10 or 15 years, and the whole way that, that it's going to be our year has been mocked, and that's, bastardised. That's a nonsense, isn't it? Because if you're not in it to win it, you don't believe that you can win it. And let's face it, we have gone close 2 or 3 times. So I think that the country sort of it's whipped itself up into a weird frenzy about Liverpool, and that's obviously because I think people are worried. We used to say a few years ago, used to think that pundits of a non-Liverpool persuasion had it in for Liverpool because childhoods were ruined by Liverpool's relentlessness through the 80s.
Careers were ruined.
Yeah, they were, and people like so Brian Robson, right until the end, great player for United. Only really won a trophy, a Premier League trophy as a captain. Got this sort of nominal number of appearances. So there's that in and around it, and as I said, the country as a whole has got together to create this cabal of hate around Liverpool. Yeah,
it's very strange.
I'm all right with it myself.
I'm banging into it, but I also simultaneously think it's strange. But I think it's also
it's not a surprise either. I was going to say it sort of feels like that we kind of knew that. Like I'm sure it's something that me and Mike have probably talked about in the past.
Yeah,
You know that's there, and I quite like it seeing it come to fruition.
And you saw the euphoria in 2014 with the Gerrard slip, didn't you? So it's also nothing new. I think we've had it before.
I think it's also a fear that the Empire comes back in exactly the same way that we had with United, and would still have again. By the way, if United were where we are right now, we'd all be sitting here going, "Here we go. They win one, they'll win three." And we'll all have to put up with that. Whereas I think everyone else,
I'm still like that about United.
Yeah, I know you are.
The spectre of Ferguson.
He texted me the other day.
Hovering a metre over my head at all times.
He's in the training ground. He's like, "What are we gonna do?
What are we gonna do?" It's fair to say that most of Adam's texts and WhatsApps appear to be on this theme because I get a lot of them as well, Ben. He's up nights tracking his movements. Let's talk about the game itself. It was a dire first half. I think there's something interesting in Wolves' approach, Ben, and I don't even think it's just from when they see the team sheet. I think that their manager's a clever man, and I think he set them up off the attitude of, right, we know it's going to be a weakened side. Don't overextend yourselves, lads. Wait for the mistakes. This doesn't have to be a terrific game of football. You'll get opportunities.
Yeah. When you're watching the first sort of 10-15 minutes, I actually thought Liverpool started all right. We looked to be playing a little bit of footy. We got down a pitch a little bit, but they just sat there and blocked any space we had to move the ball, and then the goal comes about because Milner's got no options, and then he sort of panics because he's got no options.
I hate the pass to him.
Yeah, he tries to protect the ball, he tries to keep it, and then we break. And then I don't know what he does I don't know what he does. You got a theory that he's trying to protect the young lad, aren't you?
He's because otherwise, why doesn't he? Because if anything, that Hoover has got the lad in the middle. I mean, the
lad in the middle that looked to me in the ground was stopping him from getting over. He's blocking him.
He was and he wasn't. He sort of was, but then Milner didn't try and shug him off. He was just running next to him.
I think Milner decides he's going to go with him and then sticks to it, even after it's obvious that he's going to shoot.
But they set up well. Don't get me wrong, they did. They just sat there and said, right, you're going to beat yourselves here because you've got lads trying to play footy who aren't familiar with places, where they're meant to be, who they're meant to pass to, and it was clever. I actually thought second half, I didn't think they were as good as they should have been. I thought they should have. If I was their manager, I'd be critical of what they done second half because they shouldn't be letting us get back in that game. And it was easier for us to play footy second half a little bit. But they done well enough to win the game. They scored one good goal. The second one was a good hit. Should be saved, in my opinion. But we'll get onto that, I'm sure. Can't wait, thank God, is it on the list? It is, yeah. Goalkeeper is shite.
Can't be bothered talking about the goalkeeper. He probably never plays for us again. Was most annoyed. It wasn't Alisson. Only at the very end when he went up front, Alisson would have probably got a brace.
And to be fair to him,
I've got a different agenda.
To be fair to him, he was probably frightened by the fireworks. Should have set the dog flap to a different setting.
I think that the idea of how unfamiliar the side is, Mike, I think is your big one. And I think there's something in. We know that the manager's loads of work on attacking shape, but he does loads of work on attacking shape where the attacking shape is predicated on the fact that you're going to have Mo Salah, Roberto Firmino and Sadio Mane. And they're brilliant at football, by the way. And it's like, that's what we work on. We work on how to make the brilliant lads who are brilliant at football. We work all the way through pre-season on that. We work all the way through training sessions on that. And then all of a sudden this game sort of comes on the horizon. And it's right, how do you make these lads who just aren't suited to that? I think Divock, for instance, will be a good mid-table number 9 for someone who will have a couple of seasons where he gets 15 plus, playing up front in a 4-2-3-1, leading the line, running channels. He does some of it last night. But he's not he's not able to play the football that we play when we play at our best.
No, I mean he's not a creative spark on his own. I mean it would have been better if Sturridge had been closer to him, but Sturridge just looked completely disinterested, and I was really disappointed in his performance because of the players in and around the squad. I mean he's the one really that needs to keep a level of performance up to, so that he continues to get used. And if one of the front three gets injured, there's a responsibility on him to come in and play and start games. You'd be concerned. You would be concerned if Sturridge now had to play 3 or 4 games out of the remaining 17.
He sometimes looks physically weak, and it's that physically weak or not bothered that you're not sure about. But then I thought he was really good when he came on against Arsenal, so you have got to say, like you say, Mike, he does look a bit disinterested compared to what we've seen really recently.
We've seen it in other games that he started as well. I think just his overall fitness has fallen off a cliff, his match fitness, because I think if you're going to get anything out of him anywhere near the level that we've seen previously, it is through him sort of playing every week, which is it's just not an option at the moment. But just in terms of your point there, I mean, they were playing like strangers, but that's not entirely, it's entirely understandable because that team hasn't played together. It didn't surprise me. I've seen Liverpool disjointed like that before, in these situations. It's difficult as well with the young lads coming in, where there's 3 or 4 of them coming in at once. What you'd normally like to see, or in an ideal world, one of those players who came in last night would play alongside 10 more familiar names, and they can slot in, and they don't. The responsibility doesn't fall on them to be doing spectacular things.
On Sturridge, my thing on this, Adam, is I think, so for instance, I use Burnley away as an example, and they're not dissimilar sort of games in a couple of senses, in that there's not a ton of space. Sturridge is there, you feel like he's toiling, and then we bring Salah and Firmino on, and suddenly Salah, Firmino, I think Mane plays against Burnley, they're on the pitch, Shaqiri's on the pitch, Sturridge is on the pitch, maybe not Mane, but all the good lads are on the pitch, and suddenly Daniel's finding loads of space and being able to operate. And then I think you see the same thing, for instance, when he comes off the bench in other games. The good lads are all still on the pitch, Daniel's finding loads and loads of space. I think there's a problem that Wolves basically look at Sturridge and look at Shaqiri. Shaqiri comes on against United, scores 2, but everyone else who's good is on the pitch. And I think what the opposition are able to do is go, absolutely squeeze them, get all over them, don't let them turn, force Shaqiri back, take Sturridge out the game. And they're actually, because the good lads aren't on the pitch, they're not good enough to be able to do anything about it.
Yeah, no, and I do agree, and Sturridge isn't in my top 5 worst defenders last night at all, to be honest. It's just, I guess it's just interesting to look at the senior pros and say kind of, well, I thought Milner has a terrible first half, but he's literally trying to look after the kids, I think, and he doesn't. To his detriment and to the detriment of the team, he doesn't need to do that as much as he does, and he stops doing it after a while. I think that obviously we've talked about Lovren and Lallana. They're sort of, which you kind of, can you blame them for being injured? Yes. And then you've got kind of your Keita and Sturridge and Shaqiri, and there's in different ways you can say that that you probably just about, I think you said in your match report, Neil, you just about give Shaqiri a pass, which I'd agree with. Just about, he's done as much as anybody to nearly get us the other goal that we needed. And Keita's, I think probably I'm more disappointed with him than I am with Sturridge. Purely because I've seen Sturridge do that before, and I wasn't really surprised, and I wasn't particularly expecting much more. But I would like it if he had a bit more fight and a bit more. It just sometimes, as I say, it just sometimes looks as if he has got another level which he sometimes goes up to, and when the mantle of responsibility is on him up front, he just tends to not.
I think Sturridge is a hard one, because if you ask somebody, okay, what are you going to need away from home, or Wolves away when you're playing half a team of kids, is you need someone who's going to leg it. You need Danny Ings to run the channels. You need Origi to run his balls off and try and hold the ball up and get you up the pitch.
Does that though, doesn't he? Doesn't Divock do that?
Divock does that, but I think Sturridge, if you wanted now, especially the player he is now, you look at his attributes now, it's all about trying to find half spaces. And it's the same with Shaqiri, and it's a little bit similar with Keita. It's all about playing in them little areas and getting that little half a yard of space. But for them to be good players, we need to have all the ball. And we need to have all the ball in a position where we're moving teams around. We're not going to be able to play on the break, or even even last night, we couldn't build any sort of any quality possession really at all. We'd try starting to play the ball. We'd start playing from the back. Wolves just said, well, these are going to give it away because they haven't got A, good enough players to keep it, and B, the positions are all over the place. Camacho done all right. He was playing a mad position first half. He was just...
That back four was crackers. It
Moreno,
was a back three without a right back.
You can't control Moreno.
It was
Moreno's like... It's like trying to fucking herd sheep, mate. You just can't...
You can't herd sheep.
You can't herd sheep.
You can't herd
cats. And he's a cat.
Okay.
Thank you.
There was times where he was...
literally a job called Shepherd.
Is he?
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
But the funny thing is that Camacho, I think, had been given the more free role of the two. So you've given Moreno more discipline. He's the more disciplined of the two fullbacks.
But then if you look at...
If
you look at Camacho's shape second half, he's nowhere near as attacking. He's a lot more restrained, and it was because he probably just... It's his debut. He wants to impress. He wants to get up and down a wing. Look, give me the ball, I can do X, Y, Z. You're a player who thrives in playing in that sort of half spaces. That's not the game for you last night at all, because there was none. And there's no ability for anyone to engineer the ball into a position where you can do something. We couldn't get Shaqiri on the ball where he could try and create anything until Salah comes on. And because he's a threat and he'll turn them and run in behind, and they've got to have 3 or 4 men around him. And it's the same when Firmino comes on. His movement is sharp, his ability to see the game opens up space for other people. Without that, you may as well just pick 11 cart horses and let them run around.
And we still don't score even with Salah and Firmino on the field. So I think it is one of them where I think in the past Sturridge probably relies on his with teams that sit a bit deeper. You've seen him kind of get the ball in wide areas and play a 1-2 with somebody and jink his way into the box, and it's just it just doesn't look like he's that he's got that in him in these sorts of games anymore.
Just intensity lacking from Sturridge, which, as I said before, it's really disappointing. To be honest with you, I was surprised to see Salah and Firmino come on, because
I wouldn't have bothered.
Going back to the original point, I mean, do you actually want to go through in the tie and create?
I was terrified of them getting injured.
I was just convinced someone was going to pull
potential
something.
for injury.
That's sort of game, isn't it?
And also, I don't know, it's almost like just a sop to try and placate people in some ways. But the intention to try and get a draw, I mean.
Because you know he's not, like, the manager isn't bothered. He's obviously not bothered. And
it's
bringing
hard,
them on,
and I think it's a really
mentality.
It's a tough thing to disguise. You've got 5,000 fans who've travelled down there. Obviously hoping that you go through. You paid your money, but just in terms of the way that the club views it, the way Klopp views it. As I say, I mean, to see them come on, it shocked me, to be honest.
I think Klopp's comments before the game were interesting. He says, I think they sort of shone a bit of a light into what a strategy is for the domestic cups. In that, I think he treats the domestic cups like, okay, well, we'll use them as a way to get minutes in legs of some of the fringe players in the earlier rounds, and then if we can progress and without threatening any of our first teamers, then we might take them seriously when we get to like quarter-final, semi-final stage. Because I think he said before the game, he said, well, we've seen your team, blah, blah, blah. What can you explain your team? And he said, well, the team's the team, but we had a really difficult draw. You could not have got... It was the hardest draw in the FA Cup this round, and we got it, and that's really unlucky. And then he references the first round of the Carling Cup. It's the hardest draw in that round, and we got it. Almost saying it's not fair. We wanted to play our kids, and we would have, if we got somewhere and it was worthwhile focusing on, we probably would have focused on it.
It's dead fair.
But it's not worthwhile focusing on at the detriment of the rest of the season.
I mean, last year
we
get
a full team now at this point.
We get Everton, don't we, last year? And so we has to.
So we has to.
So it's and that's the situation, isn't it? Even if we get anybody but Everton and United, I think he's going to do what he's.
There's also a massive difference as well in terms of comparing the FA Cup and winning a trophy to qualifying for the top 4, which was the position we were in this time last year. This is completely different. When you're going for a league title, when you're 4 points clear, when that's what effectively means everything to everybody. It's just it couldn't be more contrasting, I think, in that sense. The FA Cup then becomes an irrelevance and inconvenience, as sad as that is.
If we had a squad like City, If we had, you looked at them players there before, you've got a point on your agenda, do we need an extra fucking superstar up front? Yeah, we probably do. And we probably buy one in the summer, and this time next year, we're probably able to go with a side that's strong enough to beat most sides.
That's one superstar, Shaqiri, and a young lad who's promising like Ryan Brewster.
Yeah, and you're able to set up with a team that's strong enough. And we said it before, we're not a million miles away from putting a team out there that should win. That team that goes out should probably get beat, and it does. But we're not a million miles away from putting a side out with 2 injuries to 2 defenders, and then a late Lallana injury from being that's your first choice squad playing. Never mind 3 kids getting a debut. So it swings and roundabouts. This time next year, we'll probably be looking at the FA Cup. Completely different viewpoint. We probably think, well, like, we can stand this competition now because we can play. We
maybe even pick a real goal.
Well, hopefully.
Yeah.
The one who most concerns me, and this is with the eye on the challenge that is to come, Mike, is Keita. In terms of the and I say concerns me, as I say, I think that it's fine. It's completely understandable that some footballers take a bit of time to settle, that some footballers take a bit of time to get bedded in, and then some footballers actually Keita starts the season reasonably well, and then he's out for 6 to 8 weeks, and I think that's not helped him as well. I think he beginning to find his way, and then that's happened to him. So this isn't, having a massive go at him or anything like that. It's just saying that we could just do with him coming to the party. I think that's what we could just do with that. With the challenge that we know that is to come next, trying to win the league, trying to go as far as we can in the Champions League. We could do with him finding the form we hoped he would be able to show.
Yeah, I mean, he's sort of nowhere near the player that was advertised really at the moment. I mean, obviously, the start of the season described as explosive, box to box. He was going to be the one that sort of filled a bit of a creative void as well.
Constantly busy.
Always, yeah. Got a shot on him, goals in him, everything. So we've not really seen anything from him. And I agree with you. I think he seems to have regressed. I think that 6-week break obviously hasn't done him any favours, just in terms of being able to build a level of fitness. And now he's not first choice, so again he's only getting games every now and then, so that can't be helping as well. I mean, he probably that's bound to affect his confidence, and what we're seeing is just the occasional flash. I mean, there was one bit last night where he just dropped his shoulder, goes past the player, nice bit of play, and I think that's possibly the most frustrating thing, is that you've seen flashes, you can see that there's a player in him, but he seems to be playing within himself, which I always put that down to confidence. And it's very difficult to build confidence when you're not playing games. There was a point early in the season where, before he got the injury, where he and Henderson were being rotated, and I don't think really anyone had any qualms about the fact that Keita and Henderson were viewed almost equally, and they play sort of game to game.
Palace away, wasn't it?
Palace away. I mean, that was a game that he actually he looked really impressive, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But I think he's gone backwards since then, and yeah, it's unfortunate. And you expect more from £50 million player. You expect more from a player that came in with such a big reputation. He's just not showing it at the moment. But that doesn't mean to say that we're not going to see a player in due course. But the question for us now is how useful is he going to be in the remaining 17 league games? I do
wonder what's happened to him. Wonder what's happened to knock his confidence, because you're right. Actually, he's not showing anywhere near what he was showing earlier on in the season. He reminded me of Markovic last night. There was something about the way he was
Good Lord.
he was half going past people. I know it's a stupid shout, to be honest, but he did. There was times where I was thinking he's really gone backwards, and what level is it that he's at now? And that was what popped into my mind. Just almost hiding, to be honest. I've no doubt that he will start to show more than he has so far. But the way seasons go, you're almost like, do you know how we used to say, sort of as half a joke, Solanke needs a goal. And like the start of last season, he was being played quite a bit, and then it just sort of didn't happen to him. And I'm not comparing the two players, but I just think at this point there comes a time where it's like, that thing that I thought you were going to be able to do for this team, I'm not sure whether you are actually going to be able to do it. Because up until kind of watching yesterday's match, I was thinking, what would be good, I reckon. Keita and Oxel will end up, the end of this season, that we're going to be frightening, because as well as everything else we've got, we're going to have them too, and I still think there's a chance that might happen. I just think that I wonder where it is that I mean, there's the easier home games once hopefully we've got the points in the bag. But other than that, you're sort of thinking, where are we taking that risk?
Yeah, I wonder when he gets his next start, to be honest, because I just think he starts the midfield with Shaqiri, with the three, whatever it is, the 2-3-1 or whatever it is, the formation. I think it's that. I think it's Salah up front. It's Shaqiri sort of doing that little right hand side role, and I think that works. That shape works. You know, it breaks teams down. We score when them four are on the pitch. The four attackers, they score every half an hour. There's a stat knocking about, they score every 30 minutes or something. So just do that until there's 20 minutes to go. The other side's knackered and bring them on. And sometimes, careers at clubs just need a moment to kickstart. You know, Mike said he looks like he's a little bit shy on confidence. He just looks like he needs.
It's a shame that shot against Burnley didn't go in.
He was great against Burnley, and
it was a brilliant shot as well.
He was fantastic. He come on, he bossed the ball. He was dangerous. He was ghosting past people. His movement was great, and that's at a point when, by the way, Burnley are tired. When he's unbelievable.
But they were also fighting for dear life as well, to be fair. On the other side, this was a Burnley side who had a goal lead for a period to defend. They just got battered at the weekend. It was very much a bunkered down, we're taking no shit Burnley performance.
Yeah, but then the last 20 minutes you could see that performance. You watched that game to a point, Burnley were really good, and then they were knackered. But that's because they're playing against the sides with such threat everywhere on the pitch that they can just stretch it and weigh you down. You just hope that he has a little moment. He comes on, bit of a 15 minutes, whatever, sets a goal up, scores a goal, and then he can say to the manager, "Look, you give me another 20 minutes, I'll do it again. And you give me another 20, I'll do it again."
I take all that, and I think that's the sensible option. I'd be tempted to try to get him on the pitch from the start against Brighton, and because if he has a good hour, then you can get him on the pitch on the start against Palace. And then if he has a good hour, you can get him on the pitch from the start against Leicester. And I just sort of...
You could do the same. You could do the Bournemouth team, really, couldn't you? I think, unless we've got different injuries. But he starts against Bournemouth, doesn't he? In that, and he's not massively involved, but he's a real option, sort of a bit wider than we'd seen him against Burnley.
I don't think what I'd say is, because I've actually written here, looks like a player who needs to run a games, but we don't have time for that now. But maybe we do in the next three. Maybe if this is maybe it is like you get in the next three, and then you're going to get an hour in the next three, and then we go from there. That this could, if we're looking at trying to get another midfield option in for the February, March, April, May marathon, Mike, I'd be tempted to.
I'm inclined to agree with the idea that he probably needs to start another game quite soon, but I think he's more likely to get a game at Anfield, which is, I think we've got Palace and Leicester after we've got Brighton. So I wouldn't be averse to seeing him start, because we're going to have to get something out of him, because there isn't enough personnel in midfield, and there's round criticism, isn't there, of whenever we line up with Wijnaldum, Henderson and Milner, and that's too prosaic. There's not enough creativity. So he still gets to play his part. I mean, it might just be that maybe he comes off the bench one day, bangs one in, and all of a sudden you see a different player. The amount of times that's happened to players where they've scored a goal and suddenly they just look a completely different personality, the confidence levels rise, and all of a sudden they start to believe in themselves. I think it's a question of belief with them really at the moment. And the other thing as well is he had quite a fractured season last year as well at Leipzig. So it's sort of like 18 months now before he's been consistently performing for both Leipzig and for Liverpool. So that's bound to sow seeds of doubt into a player's mind.
There's another player whose performance I think will, along with Keita, probably frustrate the manager more than any other. In one sense it's not fair on him, but in another sense it's what we've seen throughout the whole of his Liverpool career. I mean, Moreno, Ben, he does your head in now more than ever, and it's a bit of a shame for him in one sense, because he's basically being compared to the most intelligent footballer ever to play the game, who we're picking at left back week in, week out. Moreno might be an absolute doom brain. So it's like it is.
I'm not sure there's much might about it.
And it is absolute chalk and cheese. It is the chalkiest and cheesiest things I've seen in my life. But it would be nice to feel as though we don't have to play Andy Robertson every single week between now and the end of May if we manage to go all the way in the Champions League. But if you're the manager off the back of last night, you're thinking to yourself, I'm going to have to play Andy Robertson every single week between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, he doesn't do himself no favours last night. I thought he was terrible. and I actually think at times in his Liverpool career he's actually been okay. You know, when he's keeping Andy Robertson out the side last season, he played well till he got hurt, in fairness. You know, a few dodgy moments, but he actually started really well. He actually defended quite well last season. And that's not easy for me to say. But last night, I don't know, maybe it's harsh to judge him on, you know, one game.
Playing next to Fabinho.
In front of Mignolet, with no real protection in front of him. He's got a kid playing in front of him. He's got Milner trying to protect everyone else on the pitch rather than him, because he's one of the senior pros, weirdly. So maybe it's a bit harsh to jump in and wade in on him, but by Christ, he doesn't do himself any favours, and he's certainly not pushing himself to start. He gives an interview whereby he says it's hard for him, and you know it's not nice, and the manager's disrespecting him or whatever. It's a translation from Spanish. He might have said anything. It can be twisted however people choose to twist the words. But fucking hell, the one way to try and get yourself picked is to play well. And you look at his contribution, Fabinho's contribution. He's playing Moreno's playing his position where he wants to play. Fabinho's not, and Fabinho shows more bottle, more nous. His ability to keep the ball, his positional sense is okay. Well, I don't really want to play here, but I'll fucking do my best. He tries to get people through the game. I thought Fabinho was really good. I thought Moreno was the exact opposite.
Yeah, no, I mean, not much to add really. I thought it was absolutely shocking. It was a microcosm of Alberto Moreno at his worst, I thought, last night. His ability to switch off, his ability to lose his man, to not know where his man is, just seems to be unparalleled. I mean, I sort of agree with Ben in the fact that we've created a narrative around him that he's got no football brain. But there have been times in his Liverpool career when he's been a hell of a lot better than he was last night, and a hell of a lot better than we've seen anything from him of late. It seems a long time ago since he scored that marauding goal against Spurs, doesn't it?
I know, I was thinking about that last night.
Oh, God.
You know, you are looking at. I think he's just become completely disengaged with the whole notion of being a professional footballer, and to an extent that's understandable. And he's not even an understudy, is he? I mean, he only gets last night's game because it's the FA Cup.
The one thing I don't get is why he's constantly involved. The other players constantly. He's at the end of almost every move towards the end of the game, and I've seen that before.
Milner plays a lovely ball out to him, and then when I'm like, this is a lovely ball. This could be the one that gets us towards an equaliser. Oh well, he's got it.
It's almost and it is. It's like Risa levels where you're like at the end of every attack is this idiot. And like it's happened before where he's ended up on every dead ball. What's going on? I just sort of I don't get it. And he is, he's a senior pro in the same way of Tom Hanks in Big. I think he's managed to grow up without by making a wish, and he's got a big trampoline in his house.
There's something in Mike. I think that we think, and I think this in the context of the Keita conversation, in the context of a few of them, we think the manager's job is to get the best out of every single player, whereas the manager's job is to do what's best for Liverpool and do what's best for Liverpool's success. Certainly at this stage of his Liverpool management and with the squad he's put together. And I think there is a thing that when you don't pick lads for a while, they almost, I'm trying to write a phrase, they almost go to seed a little bit one way or another. And I think you saw that last night with Moreno, the idea that he has just gone to seed now. And you could say, well, maybe Klopp should have kept him more involved, maybe Klopp should have done this, maybe Klopp should have done that. But Klopp's trying to basically get 100 points. That's what he's saying he needs to do. He needs to get 100 points. That's what he sees his job as. And I think that you're seeing a few examples of this. And I used Firmino as an example of it earlier this season when we were winning games every week and Firmino wasn't very good. Well, it's not Klopp's. It's Klopp's job is the winning the games bit, not to get 10 out of 10 performances out of Roberto Firmino. And I think that you see this with the squad sometimes. And it's probably gone on time immemorial where players just wane under a manager because they're not part of what the overall aim is, or not a big enough part of it.
Yeah, I mean, he's not played enough of a part in the season so far to feel engaged with the whole title challenge, I think, and he's definitely regressed. I mean, the other thing about Robertson as well is that you understand why he doesn't play last night, because it's not necessary for him to play, but he's incredibly durable, and he's got incredible energy levels, and I think basically in Klopp's head he plays him for the next 17 games. So from Moreno's point of view, the only thing that gets him back in is some kind of terrible injury to Robertson. I think even then
he go Milner left back.
Well, he goes Milner left back, or when Gomez is fit, there's potential for him to play there. So he's completely out of it. But the regression is it's pretty staggering, really. And you just don't want to see him on the pitch, because he's still a liability. I don't know whether I was laughing about this last night, but the point at which he started putting his arms behind his back, and he did it again last night, was the point I just lost all interest in him, because he doesn't want to have balance when he's going into a challenge, which just seems absolutely crackers.
Can't be asked for balance, lad. I've looked into it. I think it's overrated.
And to be fair, I think he does everyone's head in. And yeah, I'd be annoyed if I see him in a Liverpool shirt again, to be perfectly honest.
We haven't talked about the young centre-half, and we're going to come on to him because it's exciting to talk about him. I also want to have a little bit more on Camacho in a minute or two. I'd like to see Curtis Jones, Adam, get a go in a game with our first 10, and he's the 11th. I think he's the one last night. I think that Camacho basically decides he's going to be the best version of Rafa Camacho that he possibly can be. I think that Hoever comes on and gets to be unbelievably impressive under the circumstances, both in terms of his age, but the nature of what he's come on to have to do and deal with, and the position he plays. Jones looks to me like a footballer who looks like he could be very neat and tidy, very good at bringing good players into the game, but he's not getting to play with the very best players here. And I wouldn't have, let's say you see the Brighton team sheet and it's the first 11, but somehow Curtis Jones is on it. I'm not going, woe is us. I'm going, oh, that's interesting. Now, it's not going to happen. But I think he's the one who's, if anything, going to find it hardest to play in a cup team, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I just, a little bit like when Texera comes on against Fulham in 2014. You think, oh, this is all right, actually. I know what this lad can do. But I don't know. I thought he toiled last night. I didn't think he got enough help from the players around him, from Shaqiri and Keita and whoever else was meant
he was sort of outside of Milner's sphere of influence.
Yeah,
because of where he plays.
Yeah, and him playing there would usually be somebody that Milner would be helping out. So it's a shame, really, that Milner has to help out everybody else. He's putting out 5 fires in his own half or something, and can't help out. There's a moment or two where he looks bright, and I think he will have more chances. I'd like to see him again, but it probably won't be until next July.
I think it's a tough ask. What you're asking him to do. I think in any of these kids who are there or thereabouts in the squad, the way to judge if they're a good player is not to put them all in with a few first team players and say, oh well, he was good and he wasn't, or whatever. I think it's dead harsh, because you'll get completely different results if you just drop them in one at a time. If that's full, as you said, if that's full pelt, you've got Andy Robertson playing behind him, whatever. You've got Henderson on the inside of him. You've got Mane going outside of him. He's playing like a little attacking midfield role. There's space everywhere. You can look good when you're playing a sort of left midfield role behind Divock, who isn't nowhere near as good as our front three, and Sturridge, who's ineffective.
And Moreno's left back.
Moreno's left back, and Mignolet, who's the keeper, so we can't even get the ball to you. You've got a midfield that's not really
finding itself,
focusing. Yeah, they're looking after their own interests. Milner's trying to get his way through this game, playing an unfamiliar role for him. Keita's not in it. Shaqiri's not really in it. He doesn't do nothing wrong. He just doesn't get the ball in any position where he can influence the game.
Yeah, I mean, he did look neat and tidy. He's just that type of footballer, isn't he? Shifts the ball nicely from left to right. I mean, he just didn't get on the ball enough, and it's hard at that age. I mean, just to impose yourself on a game like that when other players around you with more seniority aren't putting it in. Milner was very deep, so he was effectively sort of isolated alongside Keita, and Keita again isn't having an awful lot of influence on the game as well. So for him to suddenly burst out of that like sort of inertia really in midfield, that's a big ask at the age. He's 17, so I mean it didn't surprise me, and he'll get his chance again. He looks like it. There's lots of talk about him being a really good prospect. I just don't think we saw much of it last night.
You think? Imagine the games he's played this season. Under 18 level, under 23 level, and most of the time, the team he's playing in is the best team. You know, they have all the ball, they have all the shape, and he can influence it. But even if he's not, the players he's playing against, he's probably better than most of them. So he can influence the game because he's better than, but he can influence the game because he's
got better teammates.
He's got better teammates, position of strength. Last night, he's up against fully fledged international footballers on his debut, surrounded by effectively shite for a large amount of the game. To expect him to do anything is, you know, it'd have been a miracle. He'd have had to have been Michael Owen. You know, when Michael Owen come through at 17, beating players on his own and winning Liverpool points, and he weren't playing up front, he plays left mid.
Okay, I want to talk about Hoever. I think it's unbelievable, that performance under those circumstances, Ben. I think we may not see him again now for the first team until next season's League Cup, and I think there'll be nothing wrong with that at all. In fact, I'd almost be pleased if that was the case. But for him to have accelerated his progress to the point that he comes on after 6 minutes for Lovren, and that we don't try and do anything else, we do that instead, shows the faith the manager Linders must have in him. That's the first thing. But then to watch him effectively grow through the game in the way in which he did, and produce some of what he did throughout it, was terrific. There's obviously the run, and the run looked astonishing and looked amazing. But for me, it was, you know, until he's very out of position, his positioning was terrific. His passing was excellent. His touch, his assurance. I think it's hard really to properly put over, not least because it's centre half. It's not right mid. It's not centre forward. It's not just go and do whatever you like, lad. It is playing centre back for Liverpool on a Monday night in front of the world's TV cameras. He's
done unbelievably well, and I think the thing that's so striking about it is his calmness on the ball and his willingness to play balls, you know, into areas where it's a tight pass. That he plays a couple when he first come on. He gets on the ball, gets his head up, and plays one through the eye of a needle to Milner, and he splits their two lads who are pressing him, thinking there's a 16-year-old kid, I'm going to go and take the ball off him. He splits two of them right to Milner, who then turns and is able to try and play. That takes some doing. That takes some confidence in your own ability, because imagine you, 16-year-old kid, first game, loads of men. Imagine
the
just
size of Jimenez.
Imagine just being in the changing room with all these actual men, 16 years of age for one. You know, like with hairy legs and that. You're 16, you're just half a kid. Do you know what I mean? It's like literally that step. But then actually to get on the pitch and say, well, actually, I'm as good as some of these, and I can play. And the only thing that he slightly struggled on was physicality. But because he's 16, he needs to grow a bit. And he's playing centre half. You know, I know you said hopefully we might not see him again till next season, but you wouldn't worry if they said, oh, actually he's playing right back next game, next to Joe Gomez and Virgil with so and so in front of him. You think, well, he's going to keep the ball all day, and his positional sense, if it's anywhere near as good as it was at centre half, it's going to be pretty fucking good. And he can cover, and he's quick, and he defended well as well, in fairness.
Yeah, he did. Really good. I should go with the microphone. Really good back post interception.
He was really intelligent. Thought his way through the game. Used the ball brilliantly. Fantastic find.
Yeah, I mean, the easing of the game more than anything for me was, obviously he's got most of it in front of him as centre half, but his ability to just see things. There's a couple of times where he just sticks out a leg and stops things happening. But that pass, I noticed that one as well. I mean, it's easy to play safe when you're 16. Yeah, you don't want to make a mistake. But he was ambitious with his passing. His passing was crisp. Obviously, the run out of defence. I mean, I thought I was looking at Mark Lawrence at his best there. I mean, it takes something to do that. And it just, everything about him, composure.
It's much better than Lawrence at his waist.
Yeah, that
which is now.
Just composure, touch, everything about him. And to think you're doing it that at 16, as Ben says there, in that environment as well, against a big physical side. I mean, it's incredible. The interesting thing is, where does he end up? Because he looks that good a player. Is he? I mean, is he a centre half?
He's played centre half, left back, and right back. I don't think he's played in midfield for whatever age group he's in. He's played all. So they're trying to find. They're looking for where he ends up. I think there's like a bit of a impulse to compare him to Virgil because he's from Holland. But I think there's the better comparison is probably with Joe Gomez, because if you think Gomez had a nightmare against Wolves in the FA Cup at centre half the first time he was dropped in there. And as obviously we knew he was a good player because he's already played fullback a couple of times. Gomez then was 2 years older than Hoever is now. I think he was
against the Championship Wolves side, not a Premier League Wolves side.
At Anfield rather than away. It's just, we've talked about this in the past, Neil. I think of how on earth do you get a young centre half in, because it's the hardest position probably. There's that, and you could say maybe goalie as well. Hardest position to get a young prospect through your academy into your first team. And it is staggering, to be honest, that I was really pleased when I saw him stripping off, because I sort of couldn't believe my eyes. I thought they were going to do something with Trent. They showed Trent on the TV, and then it was actually him. And Milner looks after him, and then, as I said before, after a while he realises he doesn't need to. And I think that considering all of those factors and what we've seen in the past and the historical context and the fact of his age and everything, I just think it was a really fantastic performance, and I don't think we'll see him for a while, as you say, but there's something so bright there.
I think there's a strong argument that you go into next season and you view him as either your fifth centre back or possibly even your fourth, or
I wonder
you view
whether
him as
he'll go full back,
or you view him as, you're almost as Adam's saying there, that you have your 8 defenders, two right backs, 2 left backs, 4 centre halves, and then you have him as number 9. And the idea is that he'll play left back for you, he'll play right back for you, he'll play centre half for you. Yeah,
just the Gomez routine, that's worked, hasn't it?
The one thing I wouldn't want to say, I think, Mike, there will be a rush to sort of try to find him. Even now, still with Trent, there's still talk of people still think, he'll end up in midfield. The one thing I want to I think is a centre-back who's that assured and confident of the ball at the age of 16 is exactly the sort of centre-back Liverpool should be looking to have play for Liverpool across the next 10 years, if you know what I mean. Yeah. If we want to be the club we want to be, we want that sort of assurance all over the pitch.
Well, definitely. I mean, he was that good at centre-half last season, then for me, there's no real appetite to try and pigeonhole him as something different. I mean, let's just accept that he's played really, really well there. That could be his position. Yes, he could fill in a full-back. I wouldn't be surprised if we do see him again this season, depending on what happens with injury, suspension. Any of these things can happen. Whether he gets another opportunity. If they said that he was playing centre half on Saturday, it wouldn't bother me.
Wouldn't it? Because my worry with him playing centre half on Saturday is, I think that Wolves can't quite get their head around the fact that there's a lad who's 16 and they've not planned for it really, and he's playing centre back, and Wolves are also quite fixed in what they do. There's the 3-4-3 or 3-4-1-2. There's that massive switch. We're doing that all day. That was killing the game. My worry would be you go to Brighton, and if there is rumours that this lad's going to play centre half, Glenn Murray is absolutely sharpening his elbows and Glenn Murray in his head off, and Chris Hughton is saying, you just target him. We just target him all game. I wondered if you could maybe drop him in as a massive surprise mid-April if we're looking to rotate. But what I wouldn't want to do is sort of open him up to the idea of a manager like Hughton away from home planning for that lad playing. That's where I would feel it was a bit stern.
That is a different kettle of fish, and I suppose there was a sense of him just coming off the bench last night. I mean, no one was able to sort of target him, but nonetheless,
he was incredible
in the game. He was fantastic. And
there's times where it nearly went wrong. Sorry to bring it up again, but I think with Alisson there, that doesn't happen. There's 2 or 3 times where he's looking at Mignolet like, come on. And Mignolet just stays on his line.
Put him under pressure twice.
It's just so funny.
He's a corker, isn't he? Honestly, God. Just like blank face. Look at me, mate.
Milner's killing himself bailing this lad out, and Mignolet's like, not my job here, lads. I can't be helping you there. I've got myself to worry about. There's no time for this.
Who's going to look after this line?
Very quick on Fabinho, Ben. I thought he was excellent under the circumstances, and I suspect he may well be our centre-back for the next couple of games. I think he's done well enough there. You could imagine him playing next to Virgil next couple. You could imagine him being really quite assured. He could actually become a bit of an asset.
He played well. He done really well, and I think next to Virgil, you wouldn't really notice him. I don't think you can really get after him if you try to set your game plan around exploiting him. That's fine. When you're up, if you want to do that, when you he's lining up next to Lovren, then maybe there's an opportunity to exploit our centre half. But if he's next to Virgil, I'm not having it. He's good in the air. He's quick. He's relatively quick. Actually,
it's the flip side of the Glenn Murray thing. I'd want hooting to think I'll put Murray on him because I think he'd suit just a big personal battle against a big grok. I'll just do this for 90 minutes or 60 minutes until Murray gets subbed. I'll do that. That'll be sound. I'll enjoy that. I think you'd be better off trying to pull him out of position than target him, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, if you're making a plan, your plan will be, well, he's not a centre-half by nature, so let's try and make him in situations where he's got to make snap decisions, like the one where he dives in for the goal. Milner loses the ball. Would Virgil dive in? No, he stands up and he says, go on, beat me because I can turn and beat you for pace. And a centre-half, a natural centre-half probably doesn't impulsively dive in. It's a different mindset playing centre-mid. Ball drops there, he thinks, I win this, we're in. Do you know what I mean? That's his mindset as he goes in for the game. It's a natural instinct almost.
Which is the same as fullback, because he plays fullback and they dive in as well.
They can do it because it's fine, because it's not so bad. You've got two fellas still in theory behind who are going to mop up for you. So I've got no problem with him starting against Brighton at centre half.
No, same here. I think to an extent, he almost made the case for being centre half ahead of Lovren. I think Lovren's, talk in terms of players diving in and rashness from time to time. Lovren's got that in his locker. So, as I say, there's potential for him to be viewed as a break glass centre half as well. Obviously that's going to be the case in the next couple of games. Whilst if we assume that Lovren doesn't do a Lazarus and comes back on Saturday,
I think Matip might be back.
Is he close?
Yeah, close to saying.
Matip up.
I'm talking Matip.
He's talking me up.
Klopp said, I said this on the other thing before, but Klopp said Joe and Joel are nearly back in team training. Brighton will be probably too soon for Joe. So I read between the lines and thought maybe Joel will be back for Brighton.
Big Jolie,
the piano man.
Shifting piano.
Excellent stuff. Last little thing before we move on, because we're about to go through the biggest 17 games of our lives, and we've got to focus on them now. Brighton away is the centre of our universe, Mike Nevin. It's all that matters. It's everything that there is. You're not going to see Rafa Camacho at that one, but it wouldn't surprise me genuinely if in the 4 or 5 of the home games we've got left, if his rotation option, he may well have looked at it and thought, I've got Trent, I've got Joe Gomez for right back. If I want to be more defensive, I'll play Gomez. If I want to, my first choice is Trent. We go from there. But it wouldn't surprise me if against, when, for instance, Huddersfield come to Anfield, if he is looking to save some legs, if Rafa Camacho gets a run out. Yeah,
he did really well. He seems to have a good touch, loads of pace on him. To be honest with you, I would be surprised if he features again in the league. It is difficult, and you spoke about Hoover, potentially playing again, but I think it's pretty unlikely that you're going to see these lads sort of consistently. But at the same time, he's given him some food for thought, which is all basically that's what you're asking in a game like that, is that the manager sees a different option, and he's certainly seen that in Camacho's performance last night. But as I say, I'd be surprised to see him start games.
I just wonder what he's got. What he's got that's his standout characteristic. He can do bits and pieces of each, but like if you're comparing him to Trent's always had the delivery from his debut. He's been able to whip balls in like Steve Gerrard, and that's and there's something there which makes your eyebrows go. And I think we had that with Hoover last night as well, with his range of passing and his run. I do sort of think, what is it exactly that's putting Camacho head and shoulders above the other options? The fact that he's let Klein go, which I would have done pre-United, and then after United I wouldn't have done. It means that we might have to see him, but I'm sort of struggling to see what it is exactly that's making him make the grade for Liverpool.
I think it's his ability to run loads, and he kept the ball quite well under pressure as well. A couple dropped out the sky and he killed them dead and then played. And I think his first instinct is to play. His first instinct is to get the ball and play, and that's tough at a confined spot at right back sometimes. I think it's a difficult skill because you're only looking at it. You're only looking one way. Centre mid's a lot easier because you can look, 360, whatever. You can keep the ball, but at right back you've got 2 options basically at all times. So you've got to have really good close control and the ability to see a pass. And I think he showed enough last night to suggest that he's got that. I thought positionally he was all over the place first half, but then in fairness, I think once he'd been corrected, he must have been corrected at half time from the manager. Second half, he plays like a fullback. Whereas first half he played like a fella who had a free roll, like Phillips Egan, running up and down the wings. Like, where's he fucking going now?
In his pump. And my God, did he have a pump?
He did have a pump. Lasted about 10 minutes.
But what a pump
He
it
had
was.
a big lean over and a breed.
Excellent. Brighton away is everything. He plays that mad back three at Brighton away, Mike, last season, where he plays with Alden Chan and Lovren, and we win the game comfortably.
I don't think you see any repeat of that.
I don't think we will see any repeat of that, but I think it will. Obviously, Virgil comes back in and all that sort of stuff. But it's very important, I think, that Liverpool don't have to play brilliantly. They just have to play with certainty. I think that's what we want to see, with certainty and a victory. I don't think I'm not going there thinking we need to score 3s, 4s, 5s. I'm going there thinking there's absolutely nothing wrong with an old Rafa Benitez style 2-0, where from the 20th minute the result is never in doubt and both sides cop for the reality that Liverpool are the dominant force in the game.
Yeah, and you've seen it recently in other away games, Watford and Burnley, Bournemouth as well. Certainly in two of those, in one of those games, they were able to put it to bed early. That's what you'd like to see. I mean, obviously the front three come back in. I suspect maybe Shaqiri gets 90 minutes. Well, certainly gets to start on Saturday. I think it's a difficult with Henderson, Wijnaldum, Milner. As I said before, there's just that suggestion that there isn't loads of creativity. So I think
tends not to pick them in these games. That's why when people list the games they played in, you always feel like going, yeah, they're all the hard games, lads.
But I think Shaqiri probably comes in and plays with the front three, and we go more 4-2-3-1.
All right, then we'll be talking more and more about that on the Anfield Wrap, theanfieldwrap.com/subscribe if you haven't done so yet. Thank you very much indeed to Ben Johnson, Mike Nevin and Adam Melia. It has been the Anfield Wrap this week in association with RedsBet. The FA Cup is now out the way, whether we like that or not. It's done, it's dusted, we move on with our lives. 17 games.